Having a beautiful, beautiful Sunday. Welcome to another episode of The Inside Out, where you get to meet an artist from the inside out. Like, what's their backstory? Like, what is it that has brought them to this place in their journey where they're fully expressing themselves, you know, or at least just expressing themselves. We all have a we all have a creative spirit, and that creative spirit can either get turned on or not. And sometimes it takes just a little bit of curiosity. Sometimes it takes a lot of work. And Cindy Ashton, oh my God, she is my guest this Sunday. I'm so excited to have her on, and she's going to try to join us, so she will be live as well. um, she is a person who 11 days into being born, her parents were told she had a 20% chance of living. And she's gone on to sing opera. She is a dancer. She's gone on to do all of the things that they said that she could not do. And I am so pleased to introduce you to Miss Cindy Ashton. I will put the first part of her interview on. We had a lovely conversation together. And here's part one.
You have to find your truth, but also listen to the feedback
Yes.
of people who are going to resonate. And it's a fine balance of that.
Yeah.
So it's amazing being an artist.
It is. Well, welcome to the Inside Out.
Well, I am thrilled to be here.
I'm so thankful that you are a yes to being a part of this project.
And before we jump in, I did have surgery a few days ago around this area, so I'm normally a lot more boisterous and normally can talk a bit better. But in the spirit of keeping it real, that people go through stuff, I'm here with you. And hopefully it is an example for people that you don't stop your dreams. And part of my dream is getting my message out. And so I'm very honored and thrilled to be here, even if it's a more subdued Cindy today, to be here. And I am grateful for the opportunity to spread the message a little bit more. So thank you for having me today.
Oh, you're so welcome. And what you just said just brought something to mind. As artists, especially when we're first starting on our journey, sometimes we feel like we have to be really big to be on stage, like this big version, even if that's not us.
Right.
And in the journey, there's this path to, finding our truth as an artist.
And Claude, I love that you talk about that, because I often think being extroverted and big sometimes isn't truthful, especially in the music industry. I find that over singing, over stressing your voice, the bigger the belt, the higher the belt, there seems to be more value to that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think about Christina Aguilera, who I think is a phenomenal perfection singer. And she has a big voice, but is grounded in her body. So I'm with her. But I remember when she had a song come out, it was "Say Something, I'm Giving Up on You."
Yeah.
It was so understated. And there's something to be said about the power of quiet. And there's nothing wrong with having a big voice, but if it's not rooted in truth and it's not rooted in your body, loud is not better. Connected with truth is what sells. And sometimes that truth is the whispers in the morning.
Yeah, totally. You were born, and at 11 days old, you had only a 20% chance of living,
Yeah.
yet alone getting to where you are today.
Yeah.
My sense is that part of your journey was to go against the prescribed beliefs about you.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's one of those really interesting things when you live with multiple chronic illnesses or even one is people can't see the illness. So when you go to advocate for yourself, you get don't be such a drama queen, you look fine, you're over exaggerating, everything will be fine. Um, and it's interesting because on the one hand, you end up, at least in my case, end up pushing even harder to get heard,
Mm-hmm.
and then you lose your power. So it's getting your voice heard has literally been my theme, and being able to speak that truth from a place of liberation and power and not over explaining and not over delivering and stating what you need in a place of love and gentleness, but without getting your power taken away it's a fine balance, and finding your voice is hard. And I know for me, especially because I come from the musical theater world where it is a lot of the bigger the belt, the better, as opposed to being and trusting that being and
Yeah.
trusting the flow and going with what's truthful for you. It's not.
One singular sensation, every little step she takes. One thrilling combination, every move that she makes. One smile and suddenly nobody else will do. You know you'll never be lonely with you. No, one legit presence, and you can't forget the rest. For the girl is second best to none. Sigh, give me your attention. Do I really have to mention she's the one?
You talk about invisible disabilities, and there are both the physical and the emotional ones. And the most important, is like this balance of knowing ourselves
Mm,
and then moving forth for what we want. And in your case, despite what people said you could or could not do.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like for years it was about Cindy Ashton beating the odds, Cindy against the world. And it was
Mhm.
about the fight. And over time, and I definitely needed that fight to survive. I mean, even after my first heart surgery, they saved my life, but they didn't expect me to live past my teens. And on my last heart surgery when I was 14, they said I would be on medication for life. I've been medication free for over 30 years. They said I can't do anything beyond, just walking in terms of activity. I've gone on to sing, dance, and act in 8 shows a week. I don't think normal people can do that. Um, you know, and so on and so on. Like I shouldn't take advanced courses. It's going to be too stressful for me. I went on to do a bunch of diplomas, degrees, and lots of education. And so for me to have gotten to where I did, I had to push past the pain. I mean, until I was 29, I couldn't even sleep through the night because the pain levels were so bad. So
Wow.
I spent my life, starting in my 30s, I started to realize that this pushing and hustling, it was necessary, especially because I wasn't getting the help I needed as a chronically ill person.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember applying for university as a disabled person. And I had missed 1/3 of my education and I didn't have tutors and my grades were 2% low. And they said, well, you're not disabled. So I've literally had to, because I never was truly able to get the help I needed as an invisibly disabled person. I had to learn to push and hustle, but that also took a toll on a body that was, living with 4 different diseases and still does.
Right.
And so it's been interesting these last 10, 15 years into my 40s, learning how to trust my own self, my own power, my own voice, and taking action based on the truth of me versus just pushing through anything to get there.
Yeah.
And it's been an unraveling of that. And it's been difficult, especially because we live in a society that values hard work. Um,
Mhm.
But, but when we connect, what you talked about, when you connect with yourself and your truth, it's all knowing. You've got it.
Mhm. And as a child, you already knew that this was the path you wanted to go to, because at 3 years old, you're standing up on the, coffee table dancing in the
Really
living
was.
room for your
I
for your
woman,
family.
roar. He's hella ready. When he would roar, and I never realized how significant that was. That was my favorite song without understanding at the time what the significance was. But I was always a fighter of the underdog. And again, I don't fight anymore. I be.
Yes.
I listen. My biggest struggle is that I've known what my purpose is, but I have a body, which at the
Mhm.
time I believe defied me. Um, and stood against me. Now I work with my body, which is a different energy, and it's beautiful. There's real power when you connect back to that place.
So, was there an adult that supported you in in being who you really are, despite what the doctors said?
I would say the earliest memory, and you know this one, is Mr. St. Cyr
Yes.
high school, because I got kicked out of choir in my previous school. I was told I couldn't sing, and Mr. St. Cyr, I sang in the choir when I went to this new school, but I didn't actually think I could sing. But it was open to everybody, so why not? And Mr. St. Cyr was in charge of the stage band, and he heard that I was going to become a dancer, because I figured if I'm not a good singer, maybe I can at least become a dancer.
Right.
Says a girl who has multiple scarring and her chest wired together from heart surgery. He came up to me and he said, "I heard that you're a dancer and you have the perfect personality. I want you to sing, and as a solo with a stage band." And I said, "Well, I can't sing." He says, "I need you just to audition." So I'm like, "Never know how much I loved you, never know how much you care." That's not the word, something like that. And he's like, "You can absolutely sing." And even though I was heavily bullied and the only friends I had were in music class, I
Yeah.
got 800 people in my long white gloves and my sparkly gold dress, such a Cindy Ashton thing to do. And I I got a standing ovation from a school that hated me, and that was pretty amazing. And so that gave me my 1% belief that maybe I could. And you mentioned the 1% in the beginning. It only takes 1% of you to believe something is possible. And
Yeah.
then you start taking actions, and then you start getting evidence, and that 1% turns into 5%, and then it turns into 10%, and suddenly you've achieved your dream.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just one little step at a time. That's all it takes. I recall I grew up believing I didn't have a voice. I grew up believing that I didn't count, but it was with one step, a curiosity to about music that came out of nowhere that sent me to vocal classes, and and here I am today performing on stages. It just takes 1%. That's really all it takes to get to the other side and push forward. And Cindy is, that has been a lot of her journey. It's so important to have your tribe. Even if your tribe is just one person, that's all you need, like Mr. St. Cyr. Cindy's trying to pop on, but I'm not sure that her. Let me see. We're gonna try something here,
Me?
Cindy. Oh yes, I can hear you.
Good times, come on! I'm so happy. I'm so happy that you can hear me and not see me today.
Oh my gosh, how are you doing?
You know what? My soul is good. My body is struggling today. So I thought it would be the more gentle thing to not have to doll out and get on camera and just be present with you and keep it real.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much for popping on and tuning in. There's that moment in this first segment where you tell Mr. St. Cyr, but I can't sing. And he pushes you anyway. And I love that moment that where he didn't listen to you.
Yeah. And it's so funny because this morning I was meditating, and because it's now the time to start really putting out. I've started my hashtag Standing Strong Song campaign, but now
Yeah.
it's time to really amp it up. And I've been hesitant because I have to ask even bigger today.
Hmm.
And it's so interesting because in my meditation, it's like what came up was the people like Mr. St. Cyr and Miss Primo and like other people from high school actually knew who I was, but I was pushing so hard because I didn't believe they knew. And it was such a realization that I was just being it anyways, and the people who were able to see me were see me. And it
Yeah.
was such a great insight for all of us. We don't have to try, right? What's that song? You don't have to try so hard. It's just because the people who are going to see you are the people who are going to see you. And those that don't
Right.
will never see you no matter what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Well, I think this is a good moment to put on part 2 of your interview.
Let's do it.
There's something about taking ownership of your own choices. I
Yeah.
heard another interview of you where you were talking about a relationship with somebody. In that interview, you took full ownership of your choices
Yeah.
in that relationship and the choices that brought you to a place that was uncomfortable. Taking ownership of our journey is part of what being an artist is about.
Mm. I truly believe to be a great artist is being willing to take ownership, being willing to go to the deeper layers, because that's where the deepest truth is.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because I once saw Joe Cocker live, and he was opening for Tina Turner. So I was there for Tina, and I knew who
Right.
Joe was, but I didn't really have an opinion on him.
Right.
And he was one of the deepest, most truthful performers I have ever seen in my whole life.
Wow.
By any means, he was not polished. He was like, you are so like, but he was so from his gut and from his soul. And to be a true artist, it's about taking ownership and willing to look at yourself, willing to look at the world, willing to expand your thinking. Last night, I was so honored that you came to my very private song reveal for my hashtag Standing Strong song. And there was one line in there that really takes ownership. And the song is about if you've ever been bullied or discriminated against, had a predator situation, you're going to resonate with this. But in the first verse, because there's a whole emotional journey that us artists hopefully take our audience on, there's a line where I say, I thought it was smart, but you had me fooled.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time you get to the second verse, it's like, I thought it was smart, but I had me fooled.
Yeah.
And even when I say that, I want to cry because I still remember a situation that I had that inspired this song where I had to look at myself and say, you literally had a bad gut feeling and went against the grain and let this person in your life. And then he continued to do certain things, and you continued to say, well, I'm going to be a forgiving person. I'm going to give him a second chance. I'm going to give him space.
Yeah.
And we do this for multiple reasons. And when I got to that point where I looked at myself after the whole thing imploded in the worst way possible, because I didn't listen to my truth, I actually had to do that moment of like, why would I allow somebody to continually do X, Y, and Z? Why would I what is it about me that allowed that? And boy, that was hard to see my own demons, how much, so many things about myself that I had to face. And it was so interesting because at the end of the day, I actually had myself fooled because I was living the dream of what was possible.
Right.
And I just kept ignoring, consciously seeing it and then ignoring it because I was fooling myself because I was hoping for a different outcome.
Yeah.
And, and that was when I wrote this song. I've gone through so many different iterations of it because it was so painful to go to the depth of that truth. But now that I'm there, it's still emotional, but not to the point where I can't sing it.
Right.
And as an artist, are you willing to go to that level of truth?
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, I got connected. I had a colleague, and she connected me to her husband, who was a very famous leader of a very famous band in Canada, and I can't remember who they are right now. And he sat down with me, and I played him this one song, and it was this really fun, like little dance song. And he says, "Okay," he says, "let me hear what else you've got." And I had a song that I had written called Bruised and Betrayed.
Yeah.
And that was about my marriage. And he says, this I love. He says, because you got to the root of your pain.
Right.
And as artists, it's about getting the root of our pain, the root of our truth, the root of our joy, the root of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also about finding the hero's journey in there.
Right.
People want to feel like they're triumphant at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need a poor me song. They don't need that poor me painting, that poor me whatever art you're creating.
Yeah.
And that's where great artists come in, is that it's taking that ownership, it's finding the emotional journey, but it's creating that arc of when you take the ownership, then you speak it from sing it from you express it from your power. And that's where you satisfy your own soul and your own truth, but you satisfy the audience.
Mm-hmm. So true.
The first time ever I saw your face, I thought the sun rose in your eyes. And the moon and the stars were the gifts you gave to the dark at the end of the skies.
So true. And you've written a book called Liberate Your Voice.
Yes.
Which is about trusting your power in a world that shuts you down.
Yeah.
And I feel it sounds like what you're doing is that your own personal journey to connecting with your voice and really putting it out there, you've put it in a book, and you coach people and you help people do what you're talking about now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because when people say, oh, you're a speaking trainer, and I'm like, I'm really not. So technically people think they're hiring me for speaking training. You know, the very first thing I do with a lot of my clients is teach them how to be grounded in their body, how to, I do electronic relaxation therapy degree specialization of how to relax your body, how to be connected to yourself, how to listen to yourself, and how to, and yes, obviously I'm doing stuff around voice, and obviously I'm doing stuff around body language, but it's more from a perspective, let's get rid of what's taking away your power and what's not your truth, and let's amplify. Because if you've got a funny little laugh, you should totally keep that funny little laugh. It's what makes you awesome. I mean, we think about some of the greatest actors, they are not polished. Do we ever want to see Jack Nicholson, who's so freaking off the rails, polished? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the people who get it are like, oh, she's doing way beyond speaking. She's getting me in alignment and to my power and helping me to express and amplify these wonderful quirks I have, these crazy things that I've got, and letting me connect on a deeper truth. In my opinion, it's impossible to truly liberate your voice if you're not connected to yourself and your soul and listening.
Yeah. Listening is, it's such a big piece to listen.
I'm reading a book, and I don't know why I can't remember the name right now, but he talks about how artists have to live within two worlds. The world where we leave our bodies, go to that silence, and let it all flow through and create itself. But then we have to be able to bridge back to the physical world. So I assume Claude with you, because this is with me, that happens, that it downloads, it comes, and then I look at it and go, does this make sense? Do I need to tweak a note here? Do I need to? So then I start to refine, and I feel like I go back and forth between those worlds.
Right.
You didn't know.
Right. Yeah. You know, you've got this new song that you are getting ready to put forth to the world.
Yeah.
Which is a very personal, you know, it's a very personal experience. And you've done that journey of going to the root of that experience, the root of that emotion, to be able to create something to share with the world and possibly help other people move forward through their own experiences.
Yeah. It's scary for me because I've been writing music my whole life.
Yeah.
And I've really only released one song in 2006. So when I did my first album, it was all covers of like jazz and Broadway.
Yes.
And I released one song called Butterfly, and it got almost 300,000 views on YouTube, which I was grateful for. But I was so angry at the time because it didn't feel like me. The message was me, but it didn't feel like my voice, Cindy Ashton's voice. And you know, and after years of doing opera and musical theater and comedy, I've been pigeonholed of the girl that's funny, that can sing all this stuff, and she does character roles in comedy.
Right.
And it's interesting because that's not as me as an artist. And I love singing that stuff. I love doing comedy, and character roles are a pile of fun. But there's something more powerful about just being in your truth and having to be, you know, I think about my role as Miss Hannigan. I loved that role. That was so great. Little girls, like, it's like, you want to go potty? Like, I mean, I loved that role. And while as much as I love that, there's something about being, again, just you, stripped down, without the character, without the funny. I had a regular gig in a lesbian bar way back in the day in my 20s, which was crazy. Getting hit on by all these women, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I so don't swing your way, but I'm team LGBTQ. But I just don't swing your way. But I had this wonderful pianist with me, this wonderful, wonderful Black man who used to say, girl, people think you're this, but he says, you're like a Black woman inside, the way that you sing.
I love that. You know, I feel like there's this, I don't know if Cindy's still there, but I feel like there's this common theme of being seen.
I am. I'm still here.
You incognito Black woman. But there's this common theme of being seen by others, you know? And what I sense, and it's part of my journey as well, is that, yeah, that's cool to be seen by others. There's a moment where we have to see ourselves.
Yes.
Because if we don't, people stop seeing you because it's like, what's the use? I see their light, but they don't want to shine it. Why am I going to put attention on their light? We have got to be willing to see ourselves and into that spotlight.
I'm 100% with that. And I like the word that you're saying, Claude, around willingness, because when we're feeling stuck, when we're feeling trapped, when we're feeling like we're not seen, we can move the needle by at least being willing.
Yes, totally. We actually, I think, and I have been guilty of this as well. We underestimate the power of simply saying, I'm going to give it a try. I'm willing to. I don't know how, but I'm willing to take the step. And then all of a sudden, and it feels, it looks and feels like magic, because on the outside, you may not have done anything, but all of a sudden things start to come into place and you're doing the thing that you want to do.
Yeah, that's a really wise observation. It's just that willingness and a little step here and a little step there. And it's like, I'm doing it. It's there. Let's see me now.
Yes, it's just such an amazing journey. Like, as an artist, you have done so much, and you've even, like, one thing we didn't talk about during the interview is the fact that you've got lifetime of volunteerism awards from President Obama and the Queen, who just passed. There's not that many people who have that I know, at least. I think you are the only one.
It's kind of crazy. I was wondering if there's anybody else, because it's such a weird combination. Because I'm both Canadian and I live in America on a green card. So I was like, am I like the only person in the world that actually has this combination? I don't know. And it's funny because I was shocked with both of those awards because I don't do what I do to get awards.
Right.
And that I was like, what? I don't get it. Because I don't feel like I've done anything that compared to what I really want to be doing. Like, I'm like, but I have so much more to give. So, it's pretty amazing though, because it sits there with my Telly Awards. So I see them every day and I'm like, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. And I'm grateful.
Yeah. Well, it's the impact that we have when we are coming from our truth is enormous, I think. And this, your song that you're putting out there. Is there anything else you want to say about your new song while you're here? While I have you, while we have you.
Oh my word. What do I want to say about it? It's if you've ever been bullied or discriminated against, I feel like it's going to give you a voice. It's going to make you feel seen and heard. It's going to give you strength. And, that's truly my greatest wish
Yeah.
is that this grows like wildfire, partially because it will open up conversations, because it's about standing strong for something and not against something.
Yeah.
And that's a different shift because everyone's like, we're going to fight. And I'm like, this is how we get ourselves into more trouble.
All
It's
right.
about standing strong together for what are you standing strong for?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's where the shift happens.
Yeah. And I feel like, you talk about the inside journey a lot. I
I
have
do.
a sense that the inside journey you did to get to the place where you understood how you participated to create that moment where you were bullied, where you were being taken advantage of. That I feel like that was a huge piece in you getting this song to where it is now, to where it's
Right.
talking about what you stand for rather than what you stand against.
Yeah. Because the original lyrics had a lot of, live to fight. And it's like, I live to fight. And there was lyrics around women standing up and this standing up. And it was very specific. And I was like, okay. And it was written during a very devastating time in my life. And I'm like, we're going to rework a lot of things. I'm like, I've worked through my shit now. Let's not put anything because I've gone over the lyrics so many times, Claude, be it partially for many reasons, but mostly because I wanted to come from the place of the most purest love and wholeness and healing as
Mm,
possible
yeah.
because it really makes a difference. And thank you, Nancy. She said, I love that, what you stand for versus what you stand against, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's tough because when when we feel like we've been wronged or when we've been attacked in any way, shape, or form, it's very, very easy for us to posture up
Yeah.
and we're allowed to go through anything we want to, but I've been very, very mindful about every word in
Mhm.
that piece to make sure that I am coming from the deepest place of love and healing and truth that I possibly can. So hopefully I've hit it on the nail. We'll see when it gets released in a few weeks what the public says, but I'm getting some initial good reactions. So from the little I'm giving people, so I'm excited and grateful.
Do you have a release date yet? Do you know
Yeah,
when?
I do. It's going to be November 3rd. I was originally going to do it October 28th, but with the chronic illness thing and me having surgery 3 weeks ago and struggling with my recovery, I'm like, I'm going to be gentle on myself and
Yeah.
let's just delay this a week. And it's fine. And interestingly, the numerology on November 3rd is 2, and 2 is about the feminine and the divine and communication and overcoming obstacles. And I'm like, well, of course I have to be on November 3rd with the numerology of the 2, because what we really need is a better balance between the masculine and feminine and how we deal with problems in the world, because
Yeah.
it's been way too masculine, and God, I love men, but Jesus, we
Yeah.
need like a way better
Yeah.
balance. We need a lot more feminine energy to come in and
Yeah.
balance out and heal this shit.
Yeah. And the masculine and feminine within, because we all hold both polarities, and so that may men connect to their feminine side too,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that because it takes two. It takes night and day. It takes winter and summer. It takes everything. It takes positive and negative. It takes masculine and feminine. So yeah, we've been in a world that is very, very masculine for whatever reason, and now
That's a whole other show.
yeah, that's a whole other show, a whole other conversation. But and now it feels really good to get back to a place where we're also spotlighting the feminine nature of being a human being.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the third and final segment of our conversation. If you want to go, stay on because we'll pop on after that. But yeah, here we go. Part 3 of the Inside Out with Cindy Ashton.
It was a big deal when I did my song review because truly, me as an artist that writes isn't a pretty pop song like "My Butterfly Soar Free." That was pretty. I don't do pretty because even though people see the outward, oh, she's funny, but they don't see the truth of the soul and my pain and what and my joy. And when I get to those levels, it comes through as what all of you described, a mix of jazzy, bluesy soul.
Right.
So I guess you got a Black woman inside of me. I don't know. I was so grateful to get the feedback that all felt truthful to you.
Yeah.
That's who I am as an artist. And I don't know. I'm going to start putting out little clips here and there and starting to share, and we'll see what the public thinks because they're certainly not used to me in this way. They're used to the shiny, I got rhythm kind of girl. So,
yeah. I saw you, that video of you opening Fashion Week.
New York starts spreading the news.
Yes. Oh my God. And it's like, damn, this woman has a set of lungs on her, and at the time I didn't know as much about your disabilities and to know that with all of those obstacles, you are still able to show up and to just be this huge persona. And there's a part of me that thinks that in order to get to the place where you are now, where you're wanting to, distill your gift and your craft to the essential, it's almost like you had to go through the being big.
Yeah.
To show yourself that you could, and then choosing to let go. And so now you're in this place that in a certain sense you've created where people see you as this.
Right. And now I have to break that down.
Or you have to introduce them or simply introduce them to
it's just
another aspect, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it was overcompensating. I was bullied heavily for multiple things growing up.
Yeah.
Like so many of us.
Yeah.
And being funny was a way of getting attention. Being funny was a way to get people to like me. I've had to learn to compensate through comedy and bigness to get attention and for people to like me. And so it's interesting because I am literally bearing myself of my defense mechanisms, which is the comedy and the big personality.
Yes.
And letting myself be seen at the deeply raw place that very few people have ever seen me in. But I have to be the truth of who I am right now and trust that me being that truth, not over singing, and just trusting it is my big lesson in all this right now, is being completely naked.
Yeah. And you have intuitively always known what you need, it seems to me.
Yeah. It's been my biggest pain that I have seen the vision of what I'm supposed to do and create. And I'm now 47 and it's finally happening. And there's no regrets. Because I mean, I think about, I did have the opportunities in the past. And one of them
told me about having the opportunity, I think it was with Sony.
And I walked away, I was 20 years old. And here's the truth of it, is that I never followed up because I didn't believe I was good enough. And here's the truth of it. If they would have taken me on, and at the time I wasn't super trained, I was only a year into my opera training. and it was just a lot of raw talent and very little refinement at that point, they probably would have turned me into like a Celine Dion, because I had a massive belt. I still have a massive belt. And I wasn't so trained that I did sound more pop back then.
Right.
And it's so interesting because you're going to take a 20-year-old who hates herself, who 3 years earlier had attempted suicide.
Right.
Multiple times, you know, and let's make her famous.
Right.
That is not a good situation.
It's a recipe for disaster and happens to so many people.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I wanna be a part of it. New York, New York. These vagabond shoes are longing to stray and step around the heart of it. New York, New York. I wanna wake up in the city that doesn't sleep to find I'm king of the hill, top of the heap. My little town blues are melting away. I'll make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'd make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York. New York, New York. I wanna wake up in the city that doesn't sleep to find I'm king of the hill, head of the list, cream of the crop, at the top of the heap. My little town blues are melting away. I'll make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'd make it anywhere. Come on, come through, New York. If I can make it there, I'd make it anywhere. Come on, come through, New
It takes our whole life, you know, our whole life to get to where we want to go. Like when we have a vision, and it's not about the destination.
Yeah.
It's about the journey.
Yeah.
Because on that journey, we have all of these experiences that offer us the opportunity to grow. And you, on your journey, you have said yes to all of those opportunities despite what the terrain looked like.
Yeah.
You said yes.
Thank you for acknowledging that. Because sometimes people go, oh my God, you're so lucky. And I'm like, oh my God, you have no idea.
Right.
And I know that people believe in luck. I don't. I believe in doing the work, doing the inner work,
Yeah.
and trusting and getting in alignment with your soul. When you do that, the universe wants you to win. Yeah. And one thing I've been learning over the time is that, like you said earlier, there's so many opportunities around us.
Mhm.
It's about getting present, and you're going to take action and do the work, but do the work and be smart. And
Right.
part of it is, yes, from being a strategic from the brain, but also trust your gut. And I have a series of questions I have on my whiteboard that when it doesn't feel 100% clear, I'm like, does this disrupt my flow? And if it's a yes, I'm like, gone. I have
Right.
questions like, does this nourish my soul and my purpose?
Mhm.
I have questions like, is this supporting me in the best and highest truth of my voice?
Yeah.
And because often we get stuck in our brain and go, but this worked for somebody else, so I'm going to invest in this.
Right.
Right? Learning how to trust your power is going into the fear, going into the resistance, because the resistance is going to tell you a lot. I hate this thing around push past the fear. Well, what happens? I remember once I had a really bad gut feeling, and I was like, "You should call in sick to work today." And I'm like, "No, I'm going to push through." And I'm like, "You're perfectly healthy. Why are you like, And I just had a bad gut feeling, and I'm like, call in sick. I'm like, no, it makes no sense. Like today, I'm having a good pain day, and lo and behold, I ended up getting robbed at gunpoint.
Oh my God.
Yeah, our inner knowing is always there. Our signs are always there.
Yeah.
I think about when I met my ex-husband, who's a beautiful human being, but we're not in alignment on values and lifestyle. I still remember there was a million signs, including, 9 months into dating, we went to a wedding. I caught the bouquet. A giant Amazon woman, like tackled me. I'm like 5'2". She tackles me, grabs a bouquet, and ends up breaking my nose.
Oh
in
my
the
God.
meantime. So, I mean, is that a sign? And I had so many, it's funny. You can laugh. It's fine. It's funny. There were so many signs.
Yeah.
9 months before the wedding, I had strep throat. And instead of getting a replacement for a gig, I went and did the gig and was belting out the power of love on strep throat. And I wrecked my vocal cords, got vocal nodules. I literally lost my voice, right? So we get signs. We have the universe, or whatever you believe in, is divinely feeding us. We need to ground down and allow it to come in.
Yeah.
And hear it and trust it. And I've learned that. I mean, I've nearly gotten killed by being nearly shot at.
Wow, what a journey you have had. If you were to just put it in a snapshot, and if you had, whether it be your younger self or somebody that's just starting out in pursuing their truth, what would you share with them?
You were created from something so divinely powerful that you can be nothing less than that. So when in doubt, breathe, ground, and drop back into that truth and that power, because you have the all-knowing within you.
Thank you, my dear.
Thank you, my dear. You're a blessing.
As are you. As are you. It's an honor for me to be able to have this moment with you, and for you to so generously share your journey, and all that you've been through to get to this beautiful place that you are now. Thank you. Cindy, Roland says you have a new fan.
Roland, thank you.
Yeah.
You are so beautiful to me. Very grateful. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Yes.
Open guardian angel.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I love that part where you talk about the inner knowing and grounding down, like, we all have a guardian angel if we take a pause and listen, right?
Mm, yeah.
Yeah. And
Oh,
I'm so grateful to have had this opportunity to have the conversation with you, and that you were able to join us today, because you added so much to our,
I'm so
our
grateful for having I'm so grateful that we've met each other, that we're friends now, that we're colleagues. I'll come down to LA and you and I will do some duets at some point.
Okay, I gotta say one thing. Like, every time I look at that video of you singing New York, New York, at Times Square, I remember you telling me that you were so kind of like on guard because of the cord of the mic.
Oh my God.
And how the dancers were there, you didn't have a cordless mic, and you had to not only were you belting out
That
these notes that I get chills when I listen to them, but you're
was,
also in the back of your mind thinking, okay, like, I can't trip the dancer. That's crazy.
it was interesting. It was difficult for sure. Like and with Times Square, the difficult thing is you can't actually rehearse
Right.
in Times Square. Your first time performing in Times Square is your first time performing in Times Square. So, I mean, the 2 days before we met in the square when it was like filled with people, and the dancers and I did a walkthrough based on what we thought it would be. And then we got there and the setup was different. So even our walkthrough didn't even matter. And I'm like, oh, it's a corded mic. And you could see it if you watch it back, like that, like it's swinging, like it's totally swinging. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting because people go, "Oh my God, did you have fun?" And I'm like, "Not really," because you have to understand. Like, I have performed for 5,000-6,000 people. There was 8,000 that day, so it's not that I'm not seasoned with performing for thousands of people, but normally you're on a bigger stage, you're separate from the crowd, and everyone's in front of you. Times Square, it's crazy because like you're out there and I'm standing there and I'm literally surrounded on every angle, 8,000 people in front of me. Roland just downloaded my Don't Rain on My Parade. Oh, thank you. Yay. But I'm there and I literally have people sitting on the right and the left to me, people on the barriers. In front of me are the red stairs, people all the way up, and then you've got the big billboards everywhere. And there is no backstage. So as I'm standing behind that tent, I'm literally having some guy yelling about Jesus and repenting, and somebody else, people walking by. Like, I'm like, I just want to get through this without getting COVID, because it was like 2021 and I have 4, incurable diseases, and I have no mask on at this point, being surrounded by, 20 models, and literally people stop like grabbing me over the barricade to take pictures with me. And I'm like, oh my God, how I didn't get COVID from that was a freaking miracle.
Yeah. But I mean, it was
amazing. I'm glad I did it, but oh my God, it was stressful.
Yes, another one to tack off on your list of things that you have done and you have accomplished, and you have accomplished so much in your life.
Aww.
And I just want to leave everybody with this thought of it doesn't matter what the outside world tries to tell you. Every time, like, think of Cindy at 11 days old, like, she's got 20% chance of living. And because, Cindy, of the dream that you held in your heart, that you envisioned in your mind, you have created for yourself a life that is so different than what people told you it would be. And that in and of itself is the artist's journey, and living is an art.
Yeah. I'm just grateful to be here, and I'm definitely, for me, I'm just going to do everything I possibly can to live my life, because I know that we're all on borrowed time.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it. I've just known it since I was born. And, people think I'm crazy fanatical because of my crazy routines and what I eat and what I don't eat. And I'm like, no, like I was dating this guy for a while and he's like, oh, I'm going to come over this time. I'm like, no, I got to be meditating by 9. I've got to, like, that didn't end well. But, because I mean, people think like, or I'm somewhere, I'm like, I got to go. They're like, no, come on, stay. I'm like, nope. If I stay, I'm going to be in bed for 3 days. I got to be home by 9. I've got to do my meditation. Like, it's ridiculous. And I do have days where I break down and cry, because I'm like, can I just have one freaking day of my life where I don't have to manage illness and I can be free to stay out late and not pay for it for 3 days, and it's hard, but I would rather that than shorten my life, because I'm not taking care of what I need to take care of. I'm doing everything in my power to reverse this as much as possible, and that's all I can do, and try to live as much as I can until it's my time to go.
Right. Because it obviously is not your time to go yet.
Thankfully.
But for today's show, it is time to go. Darling, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, my love. You're amazing.
To everyone who tuned in, remind us again, Cindy, when your song is actually being brought out into the world.
Yes, November 3rd. And my big goal is to hit the Billboard 200. And it's totally possible if I get enough people buying the track within the 2 weeks before. And you can go to standingstrongsong.com and to get notified when the track is available.
All righty. All right. You heard that, everybody. All right. Well, take good care. Thank you to everyone who tuned in.
Thank you, lots.
My name is Claude Hall. This was Cindy Ashton from the Inside Out. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, darling.